booktube science fiction reads here with some recent reads and a few new books. What have I read lately? The Well World books by Jack Chalker. I didn't expect to read 1 through 5, but it really felt like one continuous story, so I just stuck with it. And I felt like I was in need of some easy reading, and these are certainly easy and fun. So Midnight at the Well of Souls. This is a Del Rey paperback from 1977. Well, this is from 1980, but the book was published in 77, and it kind of felt like Larry Niven's Ringworld books in that the author wrote this single novel involving this wildly imaginative environment, and then it was so popular it warranted more books, and it was kind of fun to see what Chalker did with his creation. So I'm not really going to talk about the plots too much because they're all a blur having read them all together, but the world building is pretty wild. Basically, the setup for this is in a totally different universe. The first sentient race, the Markovians, grew to power, became godlike, and found themselves wanting and felt like they missed something along their evolution. And they decided to create their own races and see if one of those could attain what they had missed. And how did they go about this? They created an entire planet, basically a computer with a planet over top of it. And they started tinkering with different species. So the Well World is an artificial planet divided into 2 hemispheres, and each hemisphere has 700 or so hexagons. The ones that border the perimeter around the middle are kind of half hexagons. But each hexagon is like a 600-kilometer wide, at its widest point, biome for a different race. And they just experimented making different races. But what the Well World also did was punch a hole into another universe or create another universe, and that's our universe. And they seeded their creations across our universe. So humans are a creation of the Markovians that they decided, yeah, this species seems like it's capable of surviving and doing great things. So they picked the Earth, they accelerated its rate and grew it to, the perfect specifications, and then they basically spirited themselves away into the bodies of proto-humans and kind of became humans, sort of thing. And they did this with all the races. Eventually, they grew tired of being godlike, and they just gave up immortality to become their own creations. So by the time the Well World books start, the Well World has been abandoned by the Markovians for millions of years, and those last 1,500 races that they left just kind of grew up on their own. They can still reproduce and repopulate. So you've got this wild world. The Northern Hemisphere is 700 and something races that are non-carbon based, and then the Southern Hemisphere is carbon-based life. And this world exists, and it's kind of hard to determine if it exists in like the center of our universe or if it's outside of our universe. As the books go on, Chalker kind of retcons some things. It gets kind of confusing. But yeah, as the story begins, we have a human freighter captain who's just piloting his ship from one planet to another to deliver goods, but he happens to have 3 passengers with him. And they intercept a distress call, and they land on this barren planet, and they accidentally get transported to the Well World. It turns out there are a lot of old Markovian worlds abandoned. This is where the retconning comes in. I think in the beginning it was kind of implied the Markovian universe was its own thing, but as the books go on, it turns out they kind of created our universe on top of theirs. So their old abandoned worlds are in our universe, sort of. There's some weird retconning, but basically their old abandoned planets are all over the place, and they have gates, which are kind of like portals, and our characters fall into a portal and end up on the well world. And what the well world does, if you penetrate it from the outside, is send you through another gate, and you are randomly recreated as one of the 1,500 existing races. So our human characters become something other than what they were, separated by hundreds of kilometers. But our main character, Nathan Brazil, our freighter captain, is more than he seems. Not that he is aware of it at the time. He's familiar with the well world, and he tracks down some of those passengers, and they get together and they make their way toward the equator of the well world, which is the entranceway to the computer, because Nathan Brazil has some abilities, and if he can get to the entranceway to the center of the planet kind of thing, he can make some changes and make some things happen. It was pretty wild. He's not a great writer, but he comes up with some crazy ideas, really cool aliens and alien environments. And as the books go on, the stakes get higher and higher, not just for the well world, but for the external human universe as well. The next two books, Exiles at the Well of Souls and Quest for the Well of Souls, is really just one book split into two. We have different characters, one of whom does have ties to Nathan Brazil. Her name is Mavra Chang. She's also a freighter captain who does some illegal jobs on the side, and she's contacted by the human government to attend this event that kind of like the big bad human of the human galaxy is throwing. He's, with the help of some kidnapped scientists, created kind of like a mini well world computer that can alter reality. And he wants to put on a display for the powers that be, basically to say, look, I can, using my new technology, I can alter reality. I'm going to take over the human governments anyway. But with a show of force, I'm just going to let you just hand power to me rather than take it by force, unless they resist. And Mavra Chang is sent to kind of disrupt this event, and of course they all get transported to the well world. They all get changed into other creatures, and crazy adventures ensue. And then the last two books in this first five, he wrote other books after, a couple decades later. Return of Nathan Brazil, where we have Mavra Chang and Nathan Brazil team up, and Twilight at the Well of Souls. They're basically, again, one book split into two. And this time the stakes are crazy high. And this is what I kind of liked about, kind of like how Niven wrote The Ring World, and then it kind of spawned into a series. What do you do with this big dumb object you've created, and where do you go from there? And I didn't really like where Niven went with his following books. Not that I've read them all. But with Chalker, it almost seemed like he had it planned out from the beginning. At least up to the fifth book, it's really cool what he does with his creations, which I assume when he wrote the first book, I don't think he knew what he was doing, if he had any plans afterwards. But he takes the well world universe into some cool areas, and this is going to be kind of spoilery for the final book, but it takes place about probably like 1,000 years after the first. And we still have some familiar characters popping up, which is cool. He finds ways to keep certain characters alive or bring them back despite huge passing of time. And in this one, the external universe is at threat. It is going to be destroyed, and our characters have to get to the well world, which manages our entire universe, our entire reality. And they have a big decision to make, to either pull the plug on our universe and recreate it from scratch, which will end all life but ensure that life re-arises, or leave it as it is and kind of have the universe die out over time, but at least leave all current sentient races alive, kind of thing. It's huge ethical questions that the characters have to deal with. He kind of changes some of the main characters' personalities and goals and stuff, which I didn't really care for, but it's still still a pretty satisfying adventure. I did enjoy these, although reading 5 back-to-back was enough. I think I'm done with Well-World for now. But they were really fun. I did enjoy them. And I think Jack Chalker is going to become one of my new guilty pleasures. Because like I say, his writing is not that great. There's inconsistencies, and just the prose is not all that great. But he does write some fun adventures and some interesting characters. And then something totally different for me in a couple ways. These next 2 books were my first audiobook experiences. I can't say I really enjoyed the audiobook experience, although they were humorous, but this is a humor horror, Garth Marenghi's TerrorTome. Garth Marenghi is a fictional author. The real author is Matthew Holness, who is an actor, author, director. He wrote and starred in probably my favorite piece of comedic television, which is Garth Marenghi's Dark Place, which is a supernatural hospital drama that was made in the 2000s, but it was made to look like it was poorly produced in the 80s.
I'm Garth Marenghi, author, dreamweaver, visionary, plus actor. You are about to enter the world of my imagination. You are entering my dark place.
It's really funny. There's only 6 episodes. That was in the 2000s, and just in the last few years, he's revived the character of Garth Marenghi, and now he's writing horror books, comedy horror, under the name of Garth Marenghi. So it's actually is Matthew Holness writing as Garth Marenghi, writing about a horror character named Nick Steen, who is himself writing books about hacky horror writers. It's very meta. This involves a horror writer, Nick Steen, tracking down and purchasing a cursed typewriter that is said to guarantee bestsellers, but it ultimately backfires, and it unleashes every plot he ever wrote or thought of into the wild. And now the author has to hunt down and destroy all the supernatural creations he ever came up with in the real world. It's a ridiculous comedy. I don't think you'd like it unless you have watched Garth Marenghi or can appreciate this kind of ridiculous, over-the-top humor. But I listened to this in the second book, which I think is called Incarcerate. Yeah, it's absurd, but it's good.
Larry was a colleague of mine when I first started here at Dark Place. God, he was brainy and brave. Saved my life once. I saved his life twice, so I was one up. We made a pact to push each other's minds to the limit and beyond. Naturally, we both became fascinated with the occult. One night, Larry suggested we try and open the gates of hell right here in the canteen. I pleaded with him. I said no, don't, but he insisted. That night, we performed the rite and opened the gate.
And what I'm currently reading just started, The Best of C.M. Kornbluth, which I'm reading with Ira at SF Words of Wonder and Richard at Vintage SF. We've been reading these here and there and then talking about them. I've only read the first few stories, but I think this is going to be an interesting discussion because this author is going in places that the previous authors we've talked about haven't gone in. Some weird horror, some supernatural stuff, and just really, really interesting. I think Ira has read maybe a little C.M. Kornbluth. I don't know if Richard has, but this is my first experience with any Kornbluth. So currently enjoying that and looking forward to talking to them about it. Don't know when the video will be out, but it'll be on Ira's channel at some point. And that leads us to new books. And I do have a couple actually new books, which I don't often have. This is Adrian Tchaikovsky's The Doors of Eden, which is a standalone, I think, or at least it was. It might not be anymore. I can't remember. He comes up with stuff, and it feels like he releases 4 or 5 books a year. I hadn't even noticed this, but that's cool. And similar to that, I got the third book, or is it the third? Yeah, the third book in the Final Architecture trilogy. So I can finally get around to starting that at some point. I've got all 3. Something I've had in the past and then I must have sold or got rid of, but I still haven't read any Michael Crichton, but I did like this copy of Jurassic Park. So once again, I have a copy of Jurassic Park. It'll probably be the first Crichton I get around to reading at some point. I've got a timescape here, The Best of Randall Garrett, edited by Silverberg. I don't have, and I don't think I've read any Randall Garrett. I do have one or two books he co-wrote with Silverberg, so that's about it. This was edited by Silverberg, and actually each of the stories in here has a foreword by either Silverberg, Garrett himself, or a notable author like Poul Anderson, Asimov, Philip Jose Farmer, Ben Bova, Larry Niven, Gordon R. Dixon. So I haven't come across that in Best Ofs yet, where you have somebody different kind of introducing each story, but that'll be an interesting one to get to. A Brian Aldiss, another timescape, An Island Called Moreau, or Maru. This, I don't know anything about this. I haven't even read the back yet, but looks like it's a first timescape printing from 1981, and something to do with H.G. Wells, I imagine. Dedicated to H.G. Wells. In pretty good shape, too. A lot of these came from a bookstore I found 11 minutes away from my new house. They're not open often, a couple days a week, but I was very pleased to just randomly discover a bookstore nearby. Now I've got a bunch of Jack Chalker here. And other than reading these Well of Souls books, I really don't know anything about Chalker. Belshazzar's Serpent, which looks like it might be a standalone. This is from Bain. The Moreau Factor. Exile at the Well of Souls. So this is the second, and it's the only vintage one I have that was kind of in bad condition, so I picked up this to replace it. That is probably the most main character of this series, if you don't count Nathan Brazil, Mavra Chang. Although she doesn't spend much time in her actual human form. She's transformed many times by the Well World and other means. A Jungle of Stars. Prism's Lens. And then one of the other Well World books that he wrote, The Sea is Full of Stars. I think this is part of a 2-book series he wrote a couple decades later. So I'll have to track down the rest. There's 2 or 3 others in the Well World series. And then something interesting, it's weird how timing works out like this, but sometime in June, I forget the publisher, but I'll put a picture up. There's a Well World anthology coming out that was approved by Jack Chalker's estate. Can't remember any of the authors who wrote the stories, but I know the foreword is by Neil Asher, one of my favorite authors. So I look forward to acquiring that and reading some short stories in the Well World series. And I got 3 hardcovers here. Manly Wade Wellman, The Lost and the Lurking, a novel of Silverjohn. When I looked this up, I think it was the publisher that decided to name this character Silverjohn, or name this series Silverjohn. I don't know anything about the character or the series. Manly Wade Wellman is a name I've only seen in old pulp magazines, because he was writing in the 30s. Actually, yeah, here he is right here. It says his career began in 1931. I don't think I've actually read anything by him, but this is a nice, very short book club edition. Looks like it might be like an urban fantasy horror story or something. The synopsis sounded interesting, like a guy in an unfamiliar backcountry or something, like a stranger to these parts kind of thing. So I don't know, could be interesting. Manly Wade Wellman, someone I've wanted to look into for a while. Don't know if a novel would be a good place to start. Something I did not need at all, but I just couldn't resist because the cover art was so cool. Poul Anderson's The Imperial Stars. This is an omnibus of 3 books. 2 of which I think I already own. they're all Flandry stories. So Ensign Flandry, Circus of Hells, and The Rebel Stars. I have at least 2 of those. So I'll probably put that on the hardcover shelf. Paul Anderson is someone who's been hit or miss with me. And that brings us to the last one here. I think this author, who's passed away now, was somewhat local to me. I think he lived in Oshawa, Ontario. Wayland Drew, The Earth Ring Cycle. He wrote a couple movie tie-ins or movie adaptation novels. This is a book club edition of his trilogy, which it doesn't say when this came out, but the novels came out in 84, 85, 86. And I've actually had them for years. They start with the memoirs of Elcheringia, Part 1. These are really nice condition Del Reys, which I doubt I'll get rid of, even having the hardcover now. And I did start this years ago. Didn't get very far, but I was page 22 or so with my book depository, rest in peace, bookmark. They were a great website. I think it involves, it's maybe thousands of years after a societal collapse. You've got like hunter-gatherer people, but there's also some faction who's rediscovered technology. I've never heard anybody talk about these. I don't think Wayland Drew was a very known author. But knowing that he was somewhat local to me, I've always wanted to read these. So I couldn't resist buying the book club edition omnibus, because I mean, it's very cool. You know, you got the guy wearing like animal skins in the background, but then you've got old tech in the foreground. Something I've been curious about for a long time, and I've never heard anybody talk about them, so I should read them and be that guy that uploads a video talking about them. And so we got a few maps and things. So might give those a try in the near future, but otherwise that's it. I will be continuing with this. I don't know what I'll read after that, and eventually upload the second half of the paperback tour, which I have not got around to editing yet. But yeah, that's it. As always, thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.